It's actually my second time in Pakistan.
First question I want to ask, can you share the little bit background?
When I was 12 years old, I was teaching magic, which is one of my three hobbies: magic, writing, and playing piano. This is my only Pakistani mentee. She's a first-generation Pakistani mentee in California. I didn't have a chance. You seize that power.
I just want to take advantage with you.
And it's also possible to mentor people our age. We're doing what's, you're a younger man.
When I started the business, I just wanted to earn the money. Yes.
What would you say your biggest problem is right now? What's the thing that's stopping you from doing that now?
The culture is stopping me.
Okay, the culture's been stopping.
Yes.
You. The Pakistani culture or the culture within this business? The one thing in the culture that's the biggest problem. What's the one thing that's the biggest problem? It's the most shaming thing for you. But somebody who has taken a real shine to your country, to your smiles, to your hospitality, to your food, to all the things that make you so special. The beautiful buildings, the dirty streets, the wonderful food, the everything.
Thank you, Dan Ulin. And you are with me in Pakistan. And I just wanted to know why you are come. The first question in my mind, why you are in the Pakistan here.
So it's a great question. First of all, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And to answer your question, I'm here in Pakistan because it's actually my second time in Pakistan. I was here for the first time in January in Lahore for Future Fest. And I just honestly fell in love with Pakistan. The people were wonderful. The food was lovely. And when I was given another chance to potentially come, I didn't get a chance to meet Rehan when I was here in January, but he and I did have a conversation. And after that conversation, after that interview, it was kind of a surprise interview. He said he wanted to talk on video, and I didn't realize he was interviewing me, so it was fine. And I just came. I told him, listen, is there any way I can be of service? And he said, well, we're having this wonderful event at the school, and would you like to come? And I'll introduce you to some of the teachers. And I thought, well, absolutely. So we galloped across the,
Okay. You seen the school at Rehan School, right?
I have. I've seen the Krangi campus, and inshallah, I'll see a couple of the other campuses as well. But I've spent some time at the Krangi campus, and I actually spent some time with the kids from the Krangi campus when I was in Lahore at Future Fest. So we spent some time together then. And in the meantime, several of them, I would say about 15 of them have interviewed me. So, I'm intrigued, and I really love his purpose. I love Rand's purpose. So that's why I'm here.
The relation between, he's also doing the different things, right? Like he has some institute like the Rehan School, they are all doing different things.
Yes.
We do have the different culture here, the education, the matric, inter, and later on, but they have a different they do not have any book. They don't read the book. They all people are working on the computer or something. They are doing. He is doing a great job. So the first question I want to ask, can you share the little bit background about you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yes.
So my wife and I live in Los Angeles, California, in Hollywood, California. The Hollywood sign is right above our house, and but I've lived in California about 30 years. I'm originally from Boston, on the other side of the country.
Okay.
And I went to school on the East Coast. I went to University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And a few years later, I went back after I lived in Japan for 4 years and Europe for the summer, my first time. I did move to Europe years later for a number of years, and went back to Philadelphia after earning my undergrad degree there for my MBA at the Wharton School. After that, I lived in Europe for a long time, and then moved to California to start a career in the film business as a screenwriter, and realized I was not a particularly great screenwriter at the time. I wrote 3 just terrible screenplays. They were, my first screenplays out of the gate, but they were just terrible. But I had a good ear for language, and I was able to talk my way in through some encouragement to the offices of 2 of my favorite directors, really famous directors, Ridley Scott and Tony Scott. And Ridley had written and directed Gladiator and Blade Runner and Alien and some other things too. And Tony had done some wonderful things. And I was lucky that they came on. And after a couple of years of doing that, I realized I'd really rather watch movies than make them. But I had started my career as a teacher working with kids. When I was 12 years old, I was teaching magic, which is one of my 3 hobbies: magic, writing, and playing piano and singing, because I've done that around the world. And in my hometown of Boston, I was teaching kids when I was 12. I was teaching 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds magic, and teaching them not only to perform magic, but to involve audiences. So I was always interested in that. I was lucky in life to have several mentors in my life. And one of the mentors, he passed away a couple of years ago, was a magician named Max Maven, who's probably one of the greatest modern magicians ever to live. And he mentored me, not just in magic, but on the idea of reading and doing music. He was a really learned man. So I had some really good role models early in life. And I think kids, I think when you're young and you're exposed to these kinds of things, as a mentee, and you're held in, to paraphrase the great Carl Rogers, we talked about this morning. I'm gesturing off camera to a gentleman I'm pleased to know and call a friend. When you're mentored, which is very different from being taught, because as a mentor, you hold your patients, or your Carl Rogers talked about holding his patients as a psychologist in unconditional positive regard. I hold my mentees in unconditional positive regard. When you do that, you create a special relationship for them. And so I was able to do that early on in life, and I carry that into the work that I do now. And, along the way, after living in Japan for 4 years, I lived in Europe for another 4. I moved back to LA, and over the last 30-something years, I've transitioned from being in the film business to being in the marketing space and working with agencies on both sides, being in agencies and building agencies inside companies. And then I earned a master's in clinical psychology. So I have 2 master's degrees working with kids, really only with kids, and decided at the end, after earning 3,000 hours in my clinical rotations, that I would rather work one-on-one, which is what I do now. It's a high-ticket mentorship program in which parents apply to work with me one-on-one. And I could make a lot more money and give a lot more money away over time to the recipients of my 501c3. A 501c3 is a not-for-profit corporation in the United States, in order to further one of my 2 long-term goals, which is to help democratize the process of education in the United States, which, as you probably know, is very, very expensive, very competitive. And I do help my mentees get into great schools. In many cases, Ivy League schools. In many cases, they're just top 100 schools. But I have a process for helping them achieve that, and I guarantee the result. But I guarantee the result not because I'm cocky or confident in myself. I am confident in myself, but because I see such promise in the kids that I do. So this work that I do now pulls together everything I love in my life. Magic and improvisation, because my wife is the actor in the family, but I've done a lot of work in improvisation. And improvisation is just working with what you have. Whatever comes your way, you work with it. So that's where I am right now.
You have done a lot of things. And what's your age right now? You've been Europe, Japan, and all the things. I just want to know, what's your current age?
My current age is 63, and in
63?
2.5 months, I'll be 64.
Okay. Once you share the link, your website, I was thinking you were discussing about the films or something. I was thinking, once you saw the picture, he is an artist or something. So I was a little bit curious about it. So I was thinking that he might be a hero in somewhere. So you have some experience in the film artisting and so something like?
Yes, in film and in magic and in improvisation.
Your picture is good in
stagecraft.
profile.
Yeah, stagecraft. And then also in music, I've played piano and I've sung. So I have a good degree of performing arts experience. And again, I bring that into the work that I do with kids. I'm not turning them into musicians. In many cases, they're already musicians, but I'm giving them the benefit of my over 40 years of experience. It's not that I am older. I'm certainly older than my mentees, and most of my mentees. Well, here I'm not quite working, although I may be working on a more consistent basis with Rayhan School. But they're still my mentees. I'm still working with them. While I'm here, I'm doing the mentorship process. But my full-time mentees, the kids who are in my program and on track to get into wonderful schools, many of them already have. I have kids who are already in college and freshmen, and in some cases I have kids who are already in graduate school. One of them is in Japan at one of the most competitive biopharmaceutical programs in the world. She's on her way to curing cancer. And she's fantastic. So just because I'm older doesn't make me wiser. And I've talked about this with other interviews, including our friend here this morning. I'm not wiser, I just have more experience. And very often when I'm working with my mentees will be able, because I'm creating a safe space for them, to say to me, hey, Dan, I have an idea that you haven't brought up that will make this better for me. And that's magical when that happens, because what they're doing is they're giving me an idea that comes from their heart. And when it makes me a better mentor for them, it does two things. It creates a closer bond in the relationship, and it also enables me to help them become a better mentor for other kids as we go forward. There's this saying in life, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Okay. So I stand on the shoulders of my mentors, the late, great Max Maven, probably one of the greatest magicians who ever lived. But not just a magician, a performer and a very learned man. He read 15 books a week. He was also a pianist and a singer and just a very worldly man. He worked all over the world as well. And he passed away a couple of years ago, but we were dear friends. He started teaching me when I was 12 years old, coming over to my house every week. And it would be like, if I were a pianist, it would be like if Paul McCartney came to my house every week. It was like that kind of a thing, looking back on it. But we just became very dear friends. And having been mentored, which is really an old school kind of thing, it gives me the power and the perspective of giving that to kids and then enabling that to pay that forward.
That's a great thing. But you haven't mentioned these things like the magician's piano or something. You haven't mentioned in your website like that you have these kinds of profiles.
It's coming up. And the reason that I haven't done that is the website is in a state of rewriting right now. I'm doing a rewrite and a recrafting of the website right now to reflect those things. There is some mention of the magic, there is some mention of the music, but it is not, I don't hit it that hard. And here's the reason why. I don't object to doing it, but I have a bio on my website about who I am. The truth of the matter is that I want to invite some curiosity for when parents come in and they want to have meetings with me, because the way that it works is that parents visit the website, they create a brief, they go through a brief application process because it's by application only. And that's to make sure that I am a good fit for them and they are a good fit for me. Because it is a very high investment, because I've been doing this for a very long time. And at that time, I'm able to walk them through how magic applies and how improvisation, how music applies. Music, for example, is there not because many of my kids are already very talented musicians, but for those who are not, music is deeply related to math. And even if they're not going to do math, music and math are connected in terms of the ability to think of intervals and relationships between sounds. So here's what I'm saying. It's not as though there are separate buckets. It's not as though here is the learning a trade skill bucket, and here is learning the improvisation bucket, and here's learning the performing arts and how to interact with other people bucket. They're all the same. They're all connected. And the thing that really connects them is empowering my mentees to become world-class communicators in everything that means, on paper, in person, emotional, connecting with their own emotions, emotional intelligence. If I can help my mentees do that, that creates even greater earning power for them over time.
What inspired you to create the elite school coach, right? Why did you come up with this idea, right?
Yeah.
How did you get inspired with
So what happened was that I realized I think I mentioned this already, but if I didn't, about 15 years after I earned my MBA, I decided that I wanted to go back and because I'd been running my own marketing agency. It was not so much a digital agency, because in those days there wasn't as much digital, but it did migrate in that direction. And I had clients in a lot of businesses, mostly technology, but some in gourmet food, insurance, automotive, aerospace. Again, I've lived in 30-something countries and worked in 36 countries and lived in 6. But I missed working with kids. And so I went back for this master's in clinical psychology, worked only with kids. And when I came out, realized I did not want to be a psychologist. What I wanted to do was to work one-on-one with kids, charge a lot of money for that so I could give back to my not-for-profit and help out families of color and young doctors who really need the help in the United States. And it was right around this time, roughly 15 years ago, that admission to top colleges and universities in the United States, not just the Ivy Leagues, but the top 150 schools, became ultra competitive. And the way I've been asked this a lot, well, do you have a secret way of helping your kids get in? I do. And my secret with them is that I help them learn how to become different and create a clean sort of storyline, what we call a narrative. And the narrative is comprised not just of the essays that they write to get into these schools, but of the classes they take, the activities they have, the public service that they give back to society. Admissions officers in these schools are deluged. There's tens of thousands. In the case of UCLA, where one of my mentees got in, I'll use Berkeley as an example because that's a closer one. Berkeley, and this is my only Pakistani mentee. She's a first generation Pakistani mentee in California, in Long Beach, just south of Los Angeles. She was tough. She really resisted. She had a lot of trouble writing the essays, but we worked through it together, and her essays were some of the most beautiful essays I'd ever written. But the point of the narrative is that, so she ended up getting to Berkeley. Berkeley had 146,000 kids apply. 146,000 kids apply for, I want to say it's 7,500 kids on the Berkeley campus. Now, 7,500 out of 146,000, that's a very low ratio. But somebody is taking those spots. So, I mean, somebody's going to get them. So it's easy to look at those ratios and those numbers and say, well, you know, I didn't have a chance because it's only, somebody's taking those. You know, there's an old saying, and I don't remember whether it was a Sun Tzu or Marcus Aurelius or George Patton, but somebody said, power is not earned, it's taken. You seize that power. And I don't mean for that to sound militaristic or anything like that. Lean into your confidence, try the things that scare you, and very often you'll find that you're much more capable than you believe that you are. And in terms of getting into these schools, much like getting into a company, or much like finding a spouse, or it's being different. You know, there's an old saying in marketing: "Be first, be better, be different." It's very hard to be first. You know, Coca-Cola is a first. Musk is a first. Some people are able to do that, but there aren't that many firsts anymore. Better is kind of in the eye or the wallet of the beholder. You know, what's better, KFC or McDonald's? Well, I don't know. It depends on your taste, but you can always be different. You can always be different. Look at food. There's Hardee's, there's McDonald's, there's burger, but each one is very different. Each one holds a different place in the person's mind. So coming back to what we talked about earlier, a couple of minutes ago, when admissions officers, or AOs as we call them, are reading these thousands of essays, they tend to get very bored. A lot of these essays are the same. You know, I was the captain of the football team, and I did this and I did that, and my grades were here and my grades were there. I mean, and I say this with great respect to these kids because they've worked hard. It's not a clean story. The admissions officers are looking at these answers and they're saying, well, I don't get it. It doesn't hold together. As opposed to, say, in the case of this young woman from first generation Pakistani, her narrative, the way that her grades and her activities, she played tennis, she did piano, she worked in a restaurant, she did a lot of work in the local Pakistani community in Long Beach. It all held together in a very specific way. And it was easy from the time they began reading that essay to the time they finished for them to go, this young lady, I won't use her name. This young lady is an active member of her community. She believes in her culture, her Pakistani culture. Perfect. She's very committed. This woman was going to show up this way on campus, because you have to think about the way that they look at kids. When kids apply, they're 17 years old, and they can only summarize their first 17 years of life. But admissions officers are looking at candidates, and they're thinking, what's it going to be like when this kid is on campus? They're future-pacing kids. Kids are past-pacing themselves when they come in, but admissions officers are future-pacing them. They're saying, well, you know, assuming that the kids have the grades, and most of them do. Okay. But millions of kids have first grade. If it was only about good grades, everybody would get in. In her case, the story was so clean that they looked at her and said, I suspect, and looked at her and said, you know, and we don't get that many Pakistani kids. We have a lot of Indian kids and Asian kids and white kids, and, you know, but We have a good number of Pakistani kids, but the big Pakistani cluster in the United States is out of Houston,
Yeah.
New York. There's a little bit in Boston, some in California, but there isn't a huge number. So her applying and really leaning into her Pakistani heritage, yes, I think they were intrigued by that, but I think what they were most intrigued was the intensity that she did. She if I had to say, and I haven't talked to the people at Berkeley, they certainly won't talk to me. What I guess they looked at was, here's a woman who embraces her culture, who is able to contextualize her culture. And this is, based on what we see, this is how we see her on our campus. And the reason I bring this up is that it's not about, I believe, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. I think the way that a person does one thing is the way they do everything. If somebody's late to work all the time, they're just going to be late to work all the time. It doesn't make them a bad person. But if somebody is consistently, if you're a manager, if you assign somebody a piece of work and you say, I need it Tuesday, and they deliver it Tuesday, they're the kind of person who's going to be on the ball. Yeah. And you need to be able to trust them. So when they see that, they are able to extrapolate from that. This is the kind of person this student is. And we can rely on them to show up on campus and be an active member of the campus. And when she happens to be a brilliant mathematician, when somebody needs help with math and leans across the aisle, she'll be able to help them. Or when she feels vulnerable and needs some help, this is how she'll contribute. And that's what they look at. And I'm curious to know your thoughts. When you hire somebody, yes, you look at their skills, but I imagine you also look, who are they as a person?
Yes. The appearance and the importance is of the communication skill and a little bit about the background in the future, what he or she has already done it. These are things.
Because our backgrounds inform who we are, right?
Yes.
Like who we are.
And how we're going to react in the future. These are the important things.
Yeah.
The first thing that I want to know more, how can I help for the Pakistani people? How can they connect with you? Or do you have any special program on that?
I don't yet, but I'm working with Rayhan on that. And it might... Because I've been doing this a long time and because I'm fortunate enough to have a very high success rate. And again, please, people watching this, please don't take this as my being arrogant. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. I'm 63 years old. I'll be 64 soon. And I've been doing this since I was a kid. And the reason that all of my mentees up until now have been admitted to their first or second choices in schools, very competitive schools, in some cases their third choices. But the reason that I have that success rate is because I'm selective with the people I take on. And also we control the choices that they have in schools. So if a family comes to me and they say, hey, Dan, I only want my kid to get into Harvard. You have to do that. I can't guarantee that. I'm the wrong person for them. But if they come and they say, we are interested in Harvard and we're interested in Stanford and we're interested in Rice University in Houston, I'll ask them, well, tell me what about those schools interests you so much? And when they talk to me about it, I will say, okay, I don't know your kid well enough yet, but would it be fair to say that what do you want in the long term for your kid? And very often what they'll tell me is, we just want our kid to be productive, happy, make a good living, and contribute to society. And then my next question will be, so if they don't go to Harvard, if they go to a great school, but a school that's right for them, is that more important than the name of the school? And they almost always say yes. And when they do, that's right for me. Because again, I don't think it's about where you go. It's more important about how you show up where you go. And it's always about fit. It's always about fit. The fit with your boss at the company, the fit with your spouse when you get married, the fit with people you meet. Not everybody is right for everybody, and you don't have to be right for everybody. You only have to be right once or twice, and so that's where we are with right now. So to come to your question about the Pakistani people, I am going to develop a program here in Pakistan. The investment level is quite high in the United States. It's going to be even higher as I move internationally. And I love international because I spent, 4 years in Japan, 4 in Europe. I lived in a lot of places. I keep working. Pakistan is my most recent company. This is my 39th country that I worked in, and I love it. I don't think the income level is as high here in general as it is, say, in Singapore or Japan or some of the other countries. That being said, I am more in search of great students than anything else. And for the ones who can afford to pay a high rate. And by the way, I guarantee that rate. If kids are not admitted to their first, second, or third choices of schools, I give all the money back to the parents. Because if I don't empower them to do that, I don't deserve the money back.
Okay.
But the first year of college is also baked into my program because college work or university work is very different from high school work. And where this comes into play for international students, because we get a lot of students from Pakistan coming into not just colleges, but also graduate schools, particularly graduate schools, is that part of it is the cultural exchange. I mean, Pakistan is the 4th largest English-speaking country in the world, right?
Yes.
It is, right? And even though people from Pakistan in general speak very good English, they certainly can read it and understand it, it's still a big cultural adjustment. And having gone to school, undergraduate and then 2 master's degrees, one of the things that I've seen.
They are not able to speak perfectly, right?
It's not just not speaking perfectly, because a lot of Americans don't speak perfect English. I mean, perfect English is a matter of degree. It's a big cultural adjustment. The United States is very different from Pakistan. And so one of the programs I've developed is my mentees who are in college. I'm strictly one-to-one. I will never start a group program. The only group programs I'm considering starting will be very topic specific. So it will be, I'm thinking about starting a 2-weekend program in which kids work on their, we have something called the Common Application in the United States, which is the core application that runs across 1,400 schools. It doesn't work for MIT or the UCs, but it's the big hurdle that kids have to get through. So instead of kids working for 3 months on their Common App, they'll come in and in 2 weekends it'll be done. Because I think that you can be creative and work very quickly. So that may be one group program that I do, but I'm strictly going to be one-to-one. I will never scale by having groups underneath me. But the way that I am scaling right now is by having kids who are in their freshman or sophomore year of college mentor other kids coming in, whether they're young kids, 7th, 8th grade, 6th grade. My newest mentee is in 6th grade right now. And you would think, well, 6th grade, that's really young. No, it's a beautiful thing because I have a nice long runway to work with her over the next 6 years before she graduates. And the freshman year, so I'll be working with her for 7 years. And the earlier I start, the easier my job is, and the faster we can make these things happen. And so I'm excited about the possibilities in Pakistan. I don't know where it will go, but I love not knowing. Not knowing for me is rocket fuel.
But you have to find out some cheapest university that, because we do not have such the power to buy the things, right? We do have the economical issue.
Not necessarily, but there are families who can afford it. And again, part of the reason for finding families who can afford the full program is, and I don't mean for this to sound like an advertisement. Yeah. I'm not here to advertise my program. I want to be very clear about that. But for the families who can afford the full program, which consists of quite a lot of things, I'm going to take a substantial portion of that and give that back to families who can't afford it. It sort of sounds like Robin Hood, but that's not, I'm not robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. That allows me the margin to be able to pass this forward because, look, my long-term mission is twofold. And this aligns very closely with what Sir Rehan is doing. Sir Rehan is on a mission to eliminate poverty in Pakistan and, as I understand it, create millions of jobs, create millions of leaders. My mission is not very dissimilar. It is to create because there's sort of 3 pillars to my program. One is helping my kids become master communicators. The second is teaching them how to mentor others. And the third is teaching them how to become entrepreneurs. So Rehan and I...
I just wanted to add the things here that you should mention the entrepreneurial, mentorship, mentoee. Can you explain the meanings of...
Yeah, I sure can.
Yes.
But I just want to finish that piece. But when I teach these kids these 3 things, and I will go into detail on this because that's fair to do. When they learn these 3 things, they become AI proof because AI is here to stay. But that ability to, I think, any meaningful endeavor, whether it's digital marketing or becoming a podcast host or a serial entrepreneur like Rehan is, or a business leader, it always ultimately, the mark of true success is that ability to communicate on an emotional level. And AI is not there yet. It will be soon, but in the next decade doing that. So let me address your question. The 3 pillars of my program, for lack of a better term. So communication, helping kids become master communicators, not just word to word or spoken, but on stage when they need to make public presentations, whether that's virtual or in person. That's internal communication, learning to communicate with themselves, which is why I bring applied psychology into the program. Emotional intelligence, persuasion, negotiation, all of those things. So those fall under the category of communication. Okay. The second is helping them become entrepreneurs. Now, in Rayhan's case, he's already doing that from the very beginning. Yeah. That's really the sole focus of his program. My program is slightly different because I don't have the Rayhan school. He's got this new model. My model is oriented towards kids who are going to college, although I have a couple of mentees who are not going to college. My newest mentee, my brand newest mentee is 3 days. I'm only 3 days in, and that's Rayhan's son, Rayhan's second son, Mikhail, who's an incredibly talented chef. So I'm going to help him just unpack that over time. But helping them become entrepreneurs. So helping them learn not as much AI, although some of that, but helping them learn the art of developing workshops. So pulling together a workshop, anything they're interested in, whether it's landscape painting or creative writing, or I have 2 mentees now who are 14 years old, and they are creating workshops in financial literacy for 10-year-olds. That's pretty advanced. Teaching 10-year-olds how to open bank accounts, how to micro-invest, the laws of compound interest. Okay. So a workshop in anything they're interested in, and they market that. It's a market, mentor, monetize model. So they will market it using a Canva template or a podcast. They'll mentor kids during the workshop, and at the end, they'll monetize it by charging for it. They market, they mentor, they monetize, and they usually charge in the United States $49 per kid per day, because it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. At the end of one day, so I have half-day work. They have half-day workshops, 2-day workshops, 1-day workshops, and 2-day workshops. So think of the money there. So, and at the end, the kids are coming away not just learning something. They come away with concrete things. They come away with a business plan, or they come away with 3 paintings they've done, or 5 poems, or a short book. It's an actual transformation. I believe in the concept of transportation versus transformation. The teacher is the transportation. The transformation happens when they go from not knowing anything to creating something out of thin air. Yeah, that's a magical thing. Kids walk away with a bag containing a certificate from the school, 3 paintings they've done, 4 poems, a business plan. Like, that is a magical thing to have happen. So that's the communication part. The entrepreneurship part is teaching them how to write a line of copy or create a business plan or interview prospects about what it is that they want. Because when you ask prospects what they want, if many of us, we create a product, either a physical, you showed me this beautiful physical product that you did. Okay, that's a great thing. But whether it's a physical product or a digital product, many of us, we like something and we create it. I think an even more effective way to create it is to have the idea for it, but then go to the market and say, we're thinking about creating a stapler or a digital course in creative writing.
Digital marketing, in the digital.
That's marketing too, because when you ask prospects, we're thinking about creating this, what would be most useful for you? And they tell you, well, I like staplers, but I would love a stapler where I can just touch my finger to it, and whatever it is they tell you. Yes. When the market tells you, when the market says, we want this, you make that, you already have customers. So there's that. And so we've covered marketing, we've covered entrepreneurship, we've covered communication. And the final piece is the mentorship. There are feedback loops in mentorship. So my mentors are young and they're teaching me, again, I'm older and I'm not wiser. I just have more experience. And, we're taught that the shortest distance between 2 lines is a point, is a straight line. All right. So from age 10 to age 30, we have to go through that line to learn. But it's not. At age 63, I have the benefit of that many years. I can fold space and say, listen, these are the things I learned along the way. You're welcome to make these mistakes or have these learning opportunities. But what if you tried something that I learned at 40 and you get it now at 12?
Now? Yes.
Now, it may not work for them, but we can always get more money. We can always get more stuff. What we cannot get is more time. We'll never get more time. Yes. At least
this is the most important thing. Time.
It is the most important thing. So when we can collapse that down, that's magic for kids. And you asked me what would work best in Pakistan. Yes. You guys can't get more money right now. You can. I see a lot of growth in Pakistan. I see enormous possibilities in Pakistan. But being able to collapse that down and give kids and young entrepreneurs that gift of time where they're able to go, wow, what if I did that now instead of waiting 10 years? They can get so far ahead of kids in other countries, or even help other kids in other countries get ahead together, right? Because real leaders don't just do things on their own. They do things in a collaborative kind of way. So, and it wasn't that I looked at my other competitors in the college admissions space, because I'm not really a college admissions guy. My work does not end with college. It continues into college. It wasn't that I looked at the people I respect who really do great work and said, well, Chris Rim at Command Education is doing this, or Chirag Shamasian is doing this. Those are the people I really respect. I just don't know any other way to do it. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, I'm a scientist, I'm an educator, and it's just the only way I know how to do things. So that's how it came together. That's what I'm doing. And now that I've been to Pakistan and really fallen in love with your country, I want to do anything I can to bring this, bring my passion into bear for a country that I've fallen, if not in love, then in like with.
Now, Dan, my question is still there. I just wanted to know the meanings, and I wanted to educate them. What is the exactly meanings of entrepreneurship and getting start the business? Mentor, mentoree. I just wanted to know the meanings and how you gonna differentiate between them.
Okay, fair question. It's a really great question. So entrepreneurship, an entrepreneur is somebody who is a self-starter, and who creates, who is helpless, who helpless and must create. They are helpless in the face of not able to create, not being.
Yes, exactly.
They must create.
Yeah, yes.
They are.
They want to
compelled.
create. Yes.
They're compelled to create new things, whether it's to invent new ideas or transform new ideas into tangible products or services. They're creative. They marry creativity with management and leadership. You're an entrepreneur, but for the benefit of how I see it, and particularly for young entrepreneurs, it's being able to take. Here's a really clean definition. Anybody come up with an idea. Well, not anybody, but many people come up with the ideas, and very often we have these ideas when we're walking or whether we're in the shower or when we're driving. Somehow there's this idea that motion breeds clarity. Very often when we're in motion, we're walking or we're driving, and this idea comes up like, wouldn't it be great if there was this kind of a service but we forget to write those down. So we can come up with ideas. It's the taking of those ideas and putting them to action. Yeah. Making a decision is one thing. Taking that decision and putting it into action. So entrepreneurs are action takers, period. Now, it's not always perfect action. I'm a huge fan of making imperfect action. Take baby steps. And if that doesn't work, you try something else. Look at all the great creators. Did Musk create the perfect, piece of software the first time? No. Did Edison create the light bulb? Absolutely not. Michelangelo didn't carve the David the first time he picked up the chisel. But they will stop at nothing in order to reach their objective. And very often they clarify their objective as they go. So that's an entrepreneur. And I think to add on to that, I think entrepreneurs are fearless about listening to their own hearts rather than listening to people in society who tell them it's not possible. I'm sorry, you can't create look at Musk. I'm sorry, you can't create your own rocket ship. Yeah. Only NASA or the space agencies can build his own rocket ship. And nobody told him he couldn't do it, or even those who told him, he didn't listen, and he did it. So it's always the people who are thinking ahead of the curve. So that's an entrepreneur. Yes. Okay. A mentor is somebody who, again, I know I said this earlier, one of my heroes in psychology is Carl Rogers. And Carl Rogers was an extraordinary human being. And he said, the secret for me, Carl Rogers, of being a great psychologist, or I think he was a psychiatrist, is holding my patient in unconditional positive regard. No matter what they say to me, whether it's great or whether it's something really horrible, I create a safe space for them to say that. And I adopt a similar attitude and mode of thinking and mode of behavior and mode of action in the work that I do. I hold my mentees in unconditional positive regard. And the really important way that that shows up is that parents can't do that. And I say this with love and respect to parents, but you can't be a parent and be best friend and driver and cook and banker and disciplinarian. You can't do all that and be a mentor. You have to be a parent. I'm able to step back and say, listen, I see this in your child. There's this idea that when you're so close to the problem, you can't see it. So that's what a mentor does. A mentor holds his or her mentee, the recipient of the mentorship, in unconditional positive regard. And in doing so, models behavior for them that they will be able to take forward in life and pass on to other people. That's a mentor.
Can we do a little bit example here? You discuss, you have an experience in the podcast, you mentoring, you giving the mentorship. So I want to be a mentee and you will be a mentorship. And can we discuss some demo example here?
Yeah, sure. And you want me to talk about some of the kids with whom I've worked?
Yes.
Case studies or?
No case studies. I just wanted to do the example here in the podcast. Like you will be my mentor.
All right.
Mentor. I will take your mentorship with you. And in the podcast,
sure.
we can
I mean, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. Let's do it. It'll be the perfect example of imperfect action. All right. So you are my mentor. We'll do a lightning round mentor. Because sometimes it takes time for it to develop. Absolutely.
I do not have exactly idea, but I just want to take advantage with you because you discussed there. So
I don't know either. We're going to improvise our way through
it.
Okay. So I'll start by asking you a couple of questions. So tell me, and it's also possible to mentor people our age. We're doing you're a younger man than I am, but you're a grown man, but this is called peer-to-peer mentorship. Yes. Much like I studied martial arts in Japan. So it's called the dojo model. Dojos are school. Right. It's the dojo model. So tell me a little bit about what it is that you are hoping to achieve. What is it you would like to achieve? Let's say with your business.
Let's say the business, when I started the business, I just wanted to earn the money because there was not purpose anywhere, right? We need the money in Pakistan, so we're providing services in the USA and earning money in dollar. So there wasn't purpose, but the purpose is here in the podcast. We are sitting here. What I'm doing here, what I learned in the last 20 years, I'm trying to educate the people here throughout the podcast.
Okay.
The podcast having the purpose. Even I do not take the money. Those are coming here. Even I didn't get the YouTube subscriber partnership program because why? Because I wanted to teach the people what I learned, and I wanted to bring the people here, those having an experience. Like you have an experience, you are discussing with me, and I'm learning with you, and I'm sharing with my people. Those are watching me.
Okay,
that's the purpose. I wanted to learn myself and teach our subscriber what I am learning from you, and all the things are recorded here, and it will be published on the line. That like I am doing the live example with you. That's the purpose of my podcast here. Okay. Right? I just wanted to know what I have done in the last 20 years. I just want I do not want my people and my viewers to waste their time, because my subscriber like 16-year-old, 18-year-olds. So I wanted to them to not waste the time. Do not do those mistakes what I have done in my life.
Okay. So would you say, based on what I've heard, would you say that your biggest problem right now, I'll turn that into a different question.
Yes.
What would you say your biggest problem is right now? Your biggest impediment, your biggest boulder in the road is to getting to your goal?
Currently, to bring the correct people, right? Those having an experience, they are not willing to share your experience in the Pakistan, the culture here, right? They earned $1 million here, but they don't disclose their wealth because of their social activity or something, and the taxation issue or something. So this is the obstacles I have, and this is the challenge I have currently. You got my point or not?
I'm not sure I understood. So here, let me ask the question a different way.
Yes.
If you could wave a magic wand and get rid of your biggest problem, what would that problem be, and what would the result look like on the other side? You want to get to an objective. You want to grow your company, or you want to have more clarity in what you do.
Yeah.
What's the thing that's stopping you from doing that now?
The culture is stopping me. The environment.
culture's been stopped.
Yeah.
Okay, the culture's been stopped.
Yes.
The Pakistani culture, or the culture within this business?
Yes.
Okay. And point to the one thing in the culture that's the biggest problem. What's the one thing that's the biggest problem?
Yes.
What within that culture, what's the biggest problem within that culture? Is that people don't listen?
They do not want to listen, and they do not want to be share the things they do have.
Okay. So they don't want to listen, and they want to hold on to the thing.
Whatever they have.
Got it. And why do you think that is? Do you think it's because they are scared to share things? Or?
Yes, because of the environment, because of the security issue here in the Pakistan.
Okay.
If you say that we have $1 billion, so might be there is a taxation issue and something else, and this kind of issue, because we do not have the security here.
Okay.
We do not keep the iPhone in the pocket. Do you know the security issue here in the Pakistan?
I understand.
Yes.
So if do you believe that if they were more collaborative, that if they were able to share these things, that would be a good thing for them?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So now we've identified a problem and a solution. So now what we need to do is to build a bridge between the problem and the solution. Because you've got clarity on where you want to go. So here's the mentorship part. The mentorship part is, if I were able to help you find, I have some ideas, but the more important way is for me to help you find that.
Okay.
If I were able to help you find that, would that be a good thing for you? Would you be happy with that?
Yes, that's a good thing. I got it.
Okay, got it. Now, do you understand?
Yes, I got it. You are not telling me that this is a problem in the culture, but you are asking me the question to find out what exactly the issue in the Pakistan, right?
Because a mentor is a guide, right? We are all hardwired for stories. Our lives are stories, right? And there's a structure to stories, that runs through. Do you ever watch Star Wars? Do you ever watch any of the Star Wars movies?
No. Normally, sometimes not.
Okay. Do you watch movies? Or do you
Yes,
read stories?
I do.
Okay. So almost all stories have this structure, one way or the other.
Yes.
There's a hero in a story. It could be a hero. It could be a female. And the hero we begin in an environment that's sort of stable, things are happy, and then the hero encounters a problem. Maybe they want to meet in a Bollywood movie, they want to meet a girl or a boy, or if it's an adventure story, they want to go out and venture forth and they encounter a problem. And they come back and they find a master, somebody who's done it before. Maybe the master wants to help them, maybe they don't. And the master says, do this, go out and do it. And they go out and do that, and they had a victory. And then after the victory, they feel pretty good. But then comes Act 2 of the movie or the book. And in Act 2, there is more conflict. They find that their newfound strength is not as strong as they thought. And they come back to the master again, and the master tells them, you have to find that within yourself. You have the power to find that. And there's inevitably like the second act, climax, or depending on how you structured it, where the hero, who is usually in some kind of a fear, in conflict, finds that he or she has that power inside themselves that they never knew they had before.
Yes, exactly.
And in doing that, they then become the mentor. They come back and they become the master. The master doesn't become obsolete, but the master has passed on that expertise. Okay. That model is called the hero's journey. Now, I've butchered the hero's journey. I've changed a lot of it, but that's basically it. Right? So my question to you would be, in coming back to this question that you asked, that you want to make this transition from people holding on to their own expertise and not passing it along. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever faced any problem, not this specific problem, have you ever faced a problem before where you felt that you were helpless and you couldn't get to the end, and then you found out that you could do it? Can you give me a problem? It might have been in your childhood. I can't get a good grade, or I can't get somebody to talk to me, or I can't get my parents to listen. Have you ever faced a problem before and you found that by taking a different path, you were able to solve that problem?
Actually, that happened in the last 2007.
Tell me about that.
I will tell you, my business was going very well, but there is a policy change in the Pakistan. They did not allow you to bring them $1 here. There is restrictions.
Okay.
The government changed the policy that you have to register about you and why you are working for the USA company. That was a difficult situation. Though that time I was thinking that I have to close my office, and I have to close my business because I cannot explain the things what I am doing because they are not able to understand what is the digital product and why they are like you go back and think that there was the people not educated, they do not have any idea the power about the internet, right? And they ask me the questions, why he or she sending you the money, what you are giving, you are not doing, you are just sitting with the computer and doing thinking this is saying you must be doing some fraud. And the government asking me what you are doing, why he is giving you the money or exactly the dollar that time of getting the dollar $25,000. So they were thinking that he's forwarding some information or he is doing something wrong, right?
All right.
That's the situation that I was thinking that is the wrong thing going with me, and I had to close my business. But suddenly I was thinking that I find out some solution and find out some person who can help me out to bring out this situation. So I discussed with my brother, my sister. So he gave me the person who was able to explain the government people. Because I wasn't able to explain the government, and he take out me from that situation.
Got it. So what I'm hearing you say, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that in the past, you had a problem that was similar. It wasn't the same problem.
Yes, sir.
And you were able to find your way from, I don't know how to deal with this, to a solution. Got it.
Yes, exactly.
So here's why I land as a mentor. If you could do that before, you can do it now. We just need to find the similarity between the first time you did it and now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So do you see what I'm doing as a mentor? I'm not saying you need to do this.
Yes.
No, I can do that.
I got it.
But what's much more important is helping you understand you have this inside you already. I'm a catalyst. I as a good mentor functions as a catalyst. Yes, they support you, and very often you'll say, look, you did this when you were 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, whatever. And I'll say, this is how it showed up for me. But a good mentor is able to help you unlock that inside yourself. And the reason that's important is that I will then send you back to mentor other people. And there's this beautiful chaining forward of this event. It's a pay it forward policy. That's how mentorship works.
That's a perfect idea. And that you are acquiring the power that you have done this situation. You take, if I'm explaining the wrong, you can correct me, that you are giving the power, that you have the power, you can resolve this issue. You have the power, like the YouTube, I shared you the issue that you asked me that how did you resolve the last issue? Right. You can resolve this issue as well, but you have to think out, you have to sit back and relax. What the people you can bring in your life, what you can do it to resolve this issue. Is that correct, right?
Absolutely.
I think myself, you didn't tell me anything. That's the mentorship, right?
In a nutshell, yes. It's evidence-based. There's a little psychology in here too, which is it's evidence-based theory. It's evidence-based. It's an evidence-based approach because I'm using evidence from your past that you did it before. You think of it in another context. If I'm working with a kid and they're a confident kid and they've gotten great grades, but they hit a wall, they suddenly have to do something different. And they're like, I'm not confident with that. I'm confident with everything else, but I'm not confident in my ability to write an application to college or write an essay. They're like, I can't do it. And I see this happen a lot. And I'll go back and I'll say, when have you faced something like this before? And they'll say, well, when I was playing hockey, I just was really scared. I couldn't do this. They changed positions. Or when I asked my first girl on a date, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just the same thing. Okay, how did you cross that bridge? It's the same thing. This goes to an interview I had this morning. Can you share the story, any story that you have right now? Yeah, I mean, I've got a kid. I've got a kid who. Well, I mean, my second generation Pakistani mentee in the United States. She is in Long Beach, which is just south of Los Angeles. She's an incredible student, incredible athlete. She's an athlete scholar, like many of my athlete scholars. She's a Renaissance woman, meaning she's great at a lot of things. She's great at music. She's great at art. She's great at athletics and piano and things. And she also was working 20 hours a week in a restaurant and doing all kinds of things. A lot of connections with the Pakistani community. But she hit that wall where she just could not write an essay about herself. And to be honest, this is a very difficult thing to do because it's a kid's first time having to write something about themselves. It's like writing your first CV. It's very hard to write. You may have done a lot of great things in your life, but when you have to put that on paper, it's scared. Like, how do I say that without sounding like I'm bragging?
Exactly.
And you'll also find with the CV, this happens all the time. You forget things that you did. You're like, I forgot I did that when I was 20, or I forgot I was able to raise 1,000, little things like that. So likewise, it's very hard. So she hit this wall and she's like, Dan, I'm scared. I do not know how to go through this. And I've changed the way that I work this right now. So she was at the time a junior because I inherited, meaning it was her second to last year in college. Now I get this going with kids earlier. I get this going 1 year earlier with kids. But the way that I worked it with her, I said, you know what? I want you not just to be a little scared. I want you to be really scared. Because if you, and I let her get really scared. I said, how scared are you? She's like, I'm terrified. I'm terrified. And I said, what are you most terrified at? And she said, I'm just terrified that whatever I write is going to sound stupid. And I said, okay.
This happened with me as well.
It happens with everybody. And so I said to her, and what does stupid look like? Like, describe stupid. And she said that I would be ashamed. That I would be ashamed of what I wrote. I said, okay. Write something now, right? In the next 10 minutes, I want you to write an essay in which it's the most shaming thing for you. Write the thing you're most ashamed of. And I forgot what she wrote. I think she wrote about something where she lost a tennis match and she was ashamed because she wasn't prepared. I said, okay, is that the thing you're most ashamed of? She's like, yeah, I was really lazy and I didn't train for that. I said, okay. It meant like, that's it. You've written the thing you're most ashamed of. How does it feel? She said, it doesn't feel as bad. I'm not happy about it, but the fear of writing about it was much worse than the actual writing about it. The perception of the fear is much worse than actually getting to the other side. So that was an example. And then when she started writing, without giving too much away, her essay was about her Pakistani heritage and how that combined with her feeling American. And it was about, I don't want to say too much, but it was one of the most beautiful essays I ever written. It was really a bridge between her being Pakistani and feeling very strong about her heritage and feeling very strong about her American upbringing. And it was a stunning essay because it was so different. It was just different. You know, again, so many of the essays they get, and again, with the greatest respect to these kids who try hard, many of the essays they get are just boring. They say the same thing. They're like, I'm going to make a great asset to the school. I'm a great student. I love playing football. I won the big game. They get a million essays like this. They get a million essays just, and it must be very frustrating to the kids who don't get in because they're putting their best foot forward. Much better to write a very simple story. And it was, when you want to open strong, right? The most important thing, it obeys a lot of the rules of show business. And, you know, again, my wife's the actor in the family. I'm the improviser and I'm the pianist. I'm the magician. I do all these things. But you want to open your act strong. You don't want to start with something weak and then 10 minutes into the show get exciting. You want to open, boom, get their attention right away. And that's what she did. She got their attention right away in the first line. And when you can, with a college application, when you can get the attention of an admissions officer right away, and they're looking at your paper, or they're looking at the screen, and they lean in the first piece of it and say, I just have to see the next card on this kid. I have to know more about them. Their chances have just gone up 1,500, 2,000%. And why? Because you've evoked curiosity. You've evoked curiosity. And it's a simple thing to do. It's very often the things that are the most powerful are often the most simple, you know? One of my heroes in jazz is a guy named was a guy named Charlie Mingus, and Mingus was one of the great jazz players, a pianist, and he played the horn, he played the trumpet, he played a bunch of things. But Charlie Mingus said this. He said, "It's really easy to take something simple and make it very complicated. Anybody can do that, but to take something complicated and make it simple, really simple, that's real art." And we like simple. We like to consume simple. We are naturally inclined to make things more complex because we feel that by making things more complex, it will be more interesting. It's not more interesting. It's just more difficult to understand.
Right.
You know? So, and when kids get that, and their parents understand that they don't have to, you know, because so many parents are like, I want my kids to have the greatest grades. Yes, you should have great grades, but that's not the thing that's going to separate them. The thing that's going to separate them is, I'm really good at baking muffins, or I'm really good at doing this specific kind of Pakistani painting, or it can be the tiniest thing.
Yeah.
Because what does that say about the kid? What that says about the kid is that I'm going to commit 150% to anything that I do. Because underneath, what they're really looking for underneath is, what's it going to be like when this kid is on campus? What is this kid's character? What are they like as a person? And that's the thing. And that's actually a very simple thing to do. It's very terrifying, but like anything else, when you get to the other side, they look back and they're like, that's not that terrifying at all. That was actually pretty cool that I was able to do that. And two things happen. First of all, it improves their chances, but more importantly, there's this huge growth that happens. And I very often will get these calls from parents a lot. I got this from this mother too. And she said, what did you do to my daughter? Not like a terrible thing. Like, what did you, I've never seen this in my daughter before. I've never seen my daughter create something like this. And I'm like, your daughter had this inside her all the time. She needed somebody to help her unlock that. So it's a beautiful thing. It just keeps me going. It keeps me young.
Yeah. How did you unlock this? Like, she wasn't able to write the letter. What exactly question did you ask with her?
I just asked her. So no, it's a great question. I have a technique that I use called the interview technique. And it's also called the newscaster technique. And what it is that I will say, okay, if you're having trouble writing, forget the writing. Let's pretend that you are coming to the campus. In her case, one of her first choices was UC Berkeley, one of the most competitive schools in the United States. They had 142,000 kids apply for 7,500 spaces on campus. That's a lot of applications for 7,500, but somebody's taking those spots. Somebody is taking those spots. So I said to her, forget writing. Like, if the writing is terrifying you, then don't do that. Make pretend you're visiting the UC campus, the UC Berkeley campus, I'm sorry. And you run into me, and I am a UC Berkeley admissions officer. And I say to you, I'll just make up a name for her. Neha, I don't care about your writing. Just tell me what you want to say. Just tell me what you want to say. And they're always able to do that. They're like, well, what I want to say is this. I want to say that I love, my culture, and I want to say that this, and I record this. And sometimes it takes 2 interviews. And after they're done recording it, I'm like, there's your essay. We're just going to transcribe that. We're going to move some things around, write that, and then we'll refine it. Because if one of the keys to writing is, very often we get stuck, especially as young people, trying to write in a more complicated way. Again, it's this Charlie Mingus thing. But if we just write the way that we speak, it's very easy to consume. People, we want to consume things in ways that are just comfortable for us. And, the art of writing, the art of actually putting pen to paper has kind of gone the way of the dinosaur right now. No, I agree with Rehan that, AI can do anything that writing can do. And for his model, that's right. But it's not a college-driven model. And they're not mutually exclusive. Not all the kids I work with go to college. But I do think there's a bridge that needs to happen in the next few years. And I do think that being able to, and I've talked with him about this as well, that if his kids learn to communicate with their clients, the ones who are paying them to do Fiverr jobs, whatever it is,
yes,
and they can ask their clients, tell me in more detail what you want. Yes, I know you want a book cover, but tell me a little bit more about what your vision is for that. And sometimes clients can tell her very specifically, and sometimes they don't know. They're like, you know what? I thought I knew. I don't know. Like, I thought it was this, but I'm not sure. And when that kid at Rehan School, I'm using that as an example, can say, okay, that's a great answer. Let's walk around that. If you could wave the magic wand, what do you want the reader, the person who's going to buy the book, what do you want them to feel when they look at the cover? They're like, oh, I want them to feel that this book is fun and easy to consume, or whatever it is. 2 things happen when that happens. The potential client, the prospect for this kid in the Rehan School, feels heard. They feel heard and listened to. And this kid has created a bond with that client that nobody else is going to create. Now, when the next project that client has, who do you think they're going to call? They're going to call that kid, because they've already built that bridge to the kid. And it's an easy bridge to build, because, it is rare in life to really be listened to. we are so programmed, particularly in the West, less so I think here in Pakistan based on what I've seen so far. We're so programmed to live in the past or in the future. Like in the past, it's kind of like this X. Imagine, for the camera, I'll do this. And in the past, there's two ways that goes. We live in the past in which bad things happened. Why did I make that mistake? Or why did I say that to my mother? Or why did I do badly on that exam? Or we glorify the past. Wasn't that the perfect moment when I got married? Like that snapshot in time, that was perfect. Okay. And into the future, we do the same thing. In the future, we say, won't it be great when I get married and have children? Or won't it be the perfect day when I buy my house? Or won't it be horrible if I don't get that job? Or won't it be horrible if I propose to my spouse and they say no? Whatever it is. Okay. But here we are right now in the present. Like in this beautiful room, I'm having this interview with you. I'm very honored to be doing this right now, this second, this on this day, this Saturday, in this moment, and I'm enjoying this moment. Very often we don't appreciate this moment that we have in time with the idea again, we can never get more time. Okay. In this moment, we have great perspective on the past on both those directions, the things that we didn't like and the things that we did like. And understanding that we have this appreciation for the present and our understanding of the past, this gives us great traction on the future because the future is going to happen one way or the other. It's happening. It's what we do, the actions that we take right now that will impact those. We are not helpless. We are powerful. We are all powerful. We just don't realize that we are. And based on what we do now, those actions in the future will unfold from where we are right now. We just have to improvise our way there. We have to iterate and course correct along the way. You drive, right? You drive a car or a motorcycle?
Yes.
Okay. But you're in the streets of Karachi. I've seen the driving in Karachi. It's awesome. It's like being in a video game sometimes. But you have to weave your way through. That's an improvisation. You never know when something's going to happen or a motorcycle's going to come with somebody. You improvise your way through. But your destination is you're going home or you're going to the mall or you're going to a friend's house. Great. You improvise your way to that.
That's so perfect. Don't you think it takes too much time to consult one by one how you're gonna manage your time? Because I discussed with you, it took me almost 15 to 20 minutes, right? You have 24 hours in a day. So how do you manage your time?
I manage my time very tightly. I'm very, very greedy with my time because I only have so much. So I manage my time. I have very specific times that I meet with my kids. And I also task them each time with a little bit of homework. It's micro homework because they're busy kids. But I'll give an example with the kids that I'm working with right now. So all of my juniors, and some of my sophomores, so the sophomores are two years away from graduating. The juniors will graduate next year. Mm-hmm. Most juniors will not start writing their college applications until this summer. My juniors have all, with the exception of one, finished their first essays right now, done. Mm-hmm. So they're 9 months ahead of the curve on this one. And so I manage my time by making them manage their time in a very specific way. Mm-hmm. So I tell them the next time you come back, I want to see the beginning of a draft for this one. And if you don't have it, I'm not going to shame you, but that's on you. You have to do that. And I will give them very simple assignments, something like, I forbid you from taking more than 20 minutes. Work quickly. Quick, imperfect, quick and dirty is better than imperfect is better than nothing at all, right? So, right. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it started. Thank you, Ryan Levesque, one of my dear friends and mentors, for giving me that phrase. You just have to start it. You just have to take action. So that's how I manage my time. And it is tough because I am a one-to-one service, which is why I charge a lot of money for what it is that I do. But I charge a lot of money with two guarantees. Again, if their kids are not admitted to their first 3 choices of schools, I give all the money back, or because I don't deserve the money if I don't help them achieve that result. Or I give them one more year, or in some cases 2 more years in my college continuity program, which right now in the United States costs $50,000 per year. And that sounds like a lot of money. And I will tell you why I charge that. Because the difference between that additional $50,000 per year could mean the difference between getting into medical school or not getting into medical school, or coming out and getting a job with Apple or Tesla, or not getting a job with Apple and Tesla. And that could mean a difference by the time they hit 25 or 26 or 27 of a salary of $100,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not if you're living in a New York or a Boston or Los Angeles, or a salary of $400,000 or $500,000, which is a lot more. And so when parents understand, wow, Dan, you're charging a lot. And my question to them is relative to what? Relative to your child not succeeding or succeeding. And then I'll follow up by saying, and this is why I'm guaranteeing it. Because if I don't empower your child to succeed, I do not deserve your money. Now, as far as I know, I'm the only one offering this guarantee. And again, this is not an ad for my company. It's just, it's a reflection of my philosophy. And it's the same philosophy that I want my kids, I don't have my own children. Mm-hmm. You asked this morning. I don't have my own children. I got married late in life. But I want the kids with whom I work to have this same thing. I want them to feel so confident in their work that they are able to say to their clients, listen, if you are not happy with the book cover I create or the Fiverr work that I create, I will give you all of your money back. I will give you all of your money back, because if I don't deliver a product that you like, I do not want your money. I will recommend somebody else for you and gladly give you your money back. And what does the client think about that? They're like, wow, this is an extraordinary kid. If they feel that confident, I really want to work with them. People want to work with people who make them feel comfortable.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
You have a lot of tricks, right? Do you have a plan to future write a book and transfer your knowledge into the book?
I'm writing 3 books right now. Uh-huh. I'm actually writing, my newest book just started this week based on an interview I had with Rehan on my second night here in Karachi so this was 5 nights ago. Rehan and I were having a conversation, and we talked about improvisation, which has been a love of mine, a passion of mine for a long time. And I've taught improvisation, and I've been studying improvisation for 20 years, but I'm still not an expert. One of the mothers I work with is one of the great improvisers in all of it. She's been in movies, and she's a very famous person. And I'm working with her son, who's just unbelievably talented. He's if I had a son, I'd want him to be just like this guy, but he's not my son. And so we were talking about this, and I said, Rehan, at the end of the day, I'm just improvising my way through life. And he said, that's the title of your next book, and you're going to start it tonight. I'm like, okay. Now the old Dan a couple of years ago had said, well, I'll start it when I get back to Los Angeles. But, Rehan said, do it. I'm like, great, let's start it right now. So we started with the GPT thing, and we went into it, and we dove in a different way. And I'm pretty good with technology, but I'm not as comfortable with it as Rehan is. So that's book number 3. I have 2 other books in progress right now. And books they'll all be on Amazon, and I'm sure they'll be bestsellers. I don't really care about making money with them, but books are very important in terms of establishing credibility. Now, I tell my kids this too, because the first 2 books are predicated on interviews that I'm running with my kid, that I've run with my kids. I've interviewed all of my kids, some who are in college, one who's out of college and in graduate school right now, but many who are still in high school. And I'm celebrating them in their interviews. So in the case of one of my kids, she's one of my newer mentees. She's an extraordinary junior living in Northern California. And she wanted to raise money to help homeless people in San Francisco. Uh-huh. San Francisco is a very rich city, but has a huge homeless problem. And she started by saying, I want to raise awareness for homeless people. And I said, that's it's a very loose goal. People aren't going to give you money for raising awareness because they want to understand it. Let's make it really, the more specific, the better. So I said, why don't we think about leaning into women? Because there's a more emotional resonance when it comes to women, and specifically homeless mothers. And she said, okay. So I said, let's see how many homeless mothers there are in San Francisco and East Bay, which is part of San Francisco. And it turned out there were like 10,500 or 11,000 homeless mothers. That's a lot of homeless mothers. And she wanted to give them sanitation kits, toothbrushes, and so forth. And each kit was going to cost, I don't know, $12 American or $13 American. And she said, I want to raise, I think her goal was $3,000.
$3,000, right.
$3,000, which is a good amount of money for a kid who's never done it before. And I said, oh, so how are you going to go about raising it? And she had a couple of ideas. And we landed on a very specific way of doing it, which was, she goes to a private school, which here would be called public school. I think it's the opposite here. And the way that parents drop their kids off at that school is they drive through a semicircular driveway and they drop their kids off. And I said, so why don't you have a quick brochure, and on your baseball cap, you have a QR code. And you say, listen, Mrs. Khan, Mrs. Whatever, I'm trying to raise money to help homeless mothers in San Francisco. I'm asking for a $100 donation and you can write it off on your taxes. So it's a tax-free donation where you will be able to reduce your tax burden by doing this. Will you do this? And they all said yes, because they could scan it right away. And she said, well, let's do this together. Please take out your phone. Let's walk through this together. Here's the site, fill in your name, and just put the $100 in and just hit submit. 100% of them did it. She not only raised $3,000, she raised $4,700 in 28 hours. And one day later, the kits were in the hands of these mothers. So think about this. And I worked with her 2 days before that. So in the space of 3.5 days, this went from an idea, just an idea out there in the universe. It was just an idea, into electrons in her brain, into a plan that she put into action, into actual kits in the hands of mothers. That is a miracle. That is a miracle. $4,800 is a lot of money. And so she actually had these. So this went from some abstract thing into something that actually helped people. So that's an example.
But how she get the tax-free?
So tax-free just means that so she got a tax certificate number, which means that when parents make a donation, in this case, she asked for a $100 donation,
yes,
which seems like a lot, but it's in her community isn't that much. When they gave that $100, they got a tax certificate back saying they'd given this to charity. So when they're filing their taxes, they can say, oh, here's another $100 that we can write off of our income. So it was advantageous for them to do it.
Okay, perfect. You know that tools are coming very well. Like there are too many AI tools. Can you recommend these days which one you are using, and you can recommend it us that this is the tool gonna change the life, and then you can discuss or you can explore these things?
No, I mean it's a great question. You know, I'm a big fan of just plain old GWT 4 now, because it's just got such power to it right now. But you know, there are so many variations coming, and what I'm seeing a lot of companies doing is they're adopting their own version of chat. Either they're rewriting their own code, or they're taking GPT-4 and they're embedding that in their own thing, and they're creating customized versions of that. My team, and I don't advertise, I'm really kind of a word of mouth operation, because I only have so many spaces. I only have 7 or 8 or 9 spaces per class to do this, because otherwise I have too many mentees, to your point about my time management. So my team, my very small team, it's 2 people. And then I have Dennis Yu, the brilliant Dennis Yu, as one of my mentors, who's a good friend of, and you probably know him as well, a good friend of Rehan's. My team has created a Dan GPT, which has got my language, it's learned my voice, and it's using my thing for that.
Perfect.
So, yeah. But that's not a really complicated thing. You just train it you give it enough of it's not even a large language model, it's a small language model. You give it enough of your writing, and you speak to it enough that it's able to understand the way that you speak. And, you know, it's incredibly powerful right now. But
is it public right now? Are you still working?
No, I've kept it private. It may go public, it may not. We'll see. You know, I try to keep things as simple as possible with my business, but we'll see where it goes. I have a couple of ideas, but little by little.
What's your long-term plan?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Again, just the way we practiced it. I don't know, I winked like that. That was weird. So 2 things. One is that, again, as I'm able to charge higher and higher fees, and the reason that I am charging higher fees, the reason I'm charging much higher fees, Pakistan will be a different thing. I would like to have some clients in Pakistan. I would. That's just point blank. I don't want to go any lower than I have in the United States, only because it's so labor intensive. It's hugely labor intensive. In the US, I am making money, but I'm not breaking even, but it's not but in wealthier markets, you know, India, Japan, which is the second home for me. I lived there a long time, South Korea, Singapore, a couple of other places, the Emirates. Again, with the idea that this is this huge payback for the families on this one. I'm going to be taking a portion of that one and giving that out through my not-for-profit to be able to help democratize education with families in the United States that can't afford college. And the other thing is to take the mentees that I have already and have them mentor other people and have them mentor other people so that by the time, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now when I'm gone, maybe longer, I can't imagine, maybe 35 years from now, there will be hundreds of thousands of mentees who've worked through my system. They're not using the Dan Ulin method. They're using their own method, but it's based on this one. And this is where my model and Rehan's model really overlap. There's this beautiful dance between the two of them. And we're on the same path. We want to create a generation of leaders who are changing things, who are making a lot of money. They can give that money away. They can do whatever it is that they want. In the case of Pakistan, I hope that they're going to give back and help grow and change the country. Look, the United States is changing too. We're a rich country, but in Los Angeles, right where I live, we have probably the worst population of homeless people ever. We have in Los Angeles, they say 65,000 homeless people. I think it's bigger. But here's the thing. Homeless people all came from somewhere. They weren't born on the street. And I think everybody has the right to human dignity, a place to live, clean water, to be clean, to have their bodies clean. To not be freezing in the winter. And so many, if not most of the people who ended up on the street in Los Angeles and all the other cities in the world, but particularly in LA and the United States, were veterans. They were war veterans. Here we have a war veteran here, right? We have a captain over here. I'm not going to name who you are. And thank you for your service to this country. You worked for, 6 and change years. And you gave back to your country. Well, the people who gave back to their country in the United States and then came back and are now living on the street, that is just not right. That is just not right, in my opinion. And I think also lower income families who are not able to afford college, because college is a very expensive proposition, even if you go to a junior college. I don't think that is right. I think in a country like the United States, that everybody should have the right, not the privilege, the right to a decent college education. Again, you don't have to go to Harvard. You can go wherever it is that you want. It's what you make of it. I'd rather see a kid go to a college nobody's ever heard of and be the top of their class and just crush it than go to a Penn where I went and be a mediocre student, because it's really what you make of it. So that's part of it. So those are my 2 long-term goals. Army of mentees and Renaissance people going out there and then helping that. And I'm on that path right now. I just need to continue. And the big growth for me is going to come internationally.
That's a perfect idea.
Well, we'll see.
Then I just want to know, what is the impact on your life, the networking? How much the importance is the networking, like that you are coming from here for the Pakistan, from US to Pakistan?
Yeah.
Just because of the network, right? So I just want to know the importance of networking to grow your career in terms like this.
Sure. Yeah, it's really important, and it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. It's there's only so much that you can do over Zoom or over email. And I think that it's important, well, it's important for me anyway, to be able to meet people face-to-face.
Yes.
And to have these podcasts face-to-face. Sometimes you can do them remotely. Having done this now, we could do one remotely. But you don't get that feel. Again, this goes back to the communication being over only 9% verbal, which is what you get over Zoom. But you don't get that immediacy of looking into somebody's eyes, the nonverbal communication, the body language, just the feeling of being in the room, the tone of voice, whether I'm speaking loudly or softly, or the silences. You don't get that unless you're in the same room with somebody. And there are a lot of people who say, Pakistan is so far away. Again, I don't know why I did that. Was super unprofessional, but it's out there now. For me, you get on a plane, you get on a steel tube that has little birdie wings, and you have something to eat, you have a sleep, and this guy liked the birdie wings thing. Planes don't generally flap their wings, but you never know. And then you're here, and that's it. So the difference between a 3-hour flight and a 24-hour flight is not that big a deal. And then you're here. And the other thing for me, as somebody who wants to learn more about cultures that I don't know that much about, as well as cultures that I've spent a lot of time in. 4 years in Japan is a long time, but I still don't know everything about it. I still don't know everything about my own culture. I don't know. Yes. And not knowing is a very powerful tool, because again, it comes to, I don't know, but I'm going to find out more. And every day when you realize there's more and more to learn, that's an exciting thing, which is certainly true of my career. So That's it. Like being here is really, really, really important.
Perfect. If you got the chance to start the new business, what business will you start?
I would start probably an event business, but based on what it is that I'm doing. So I want to stay close to the core business that I'm doing right now. You know, I don't want to go into the candy business, you know. I don't know why I use that as an example. I don't want to go into the candy business, the food business, but events, I like doing events, especially high ticket events, meaning expensive events, but that have a very specific purpose. So for example, we talked about one of the group projects that I'm talking about doing, or maybe we didn't. I'm losing track here because I've had so many podcasts. One of the big walls that people run up against, kids run up against, is that writing that Common App essay. They just slam into it and they can't do it. And I have an idea to do and I've tried it out so far. I'm a nerd. I'm a relentless tester of ideas, because I learned many years ago that having failed at it, that just because I have an idea does not mean it's going to sell. Very often it'll just crash and burn. So now when I have an idea, I test it in the market. Very often I'll ask the moms or dads with whom I work, as well as the kids, like, do you think this is a good idea? And if you do, tell me what would be, if you didn't know me at all and you were going to buy it. Because right now, if you're in my tribe, if you're part of my group, you get everything I come up with. People who are in my tribe get anything else for free coming up. And I offer a lot of unexpected bonuses because I think having surprises along the way. So this for people who are not part of my tribe, this idea for the get your Common App done in 1 weekend or 2 weekends, probably 1 weekend, where they have homework on the front end and then it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they work on it. And by the time they're done with Sunday, it's done. Or maybe there's a 1 hour consult at the end. That's a really fast time of doing it. That will not be an inexpensive thing. That will probably be, since my program is about $50,000 right now, I sometimes discount it. It will be a lot more here. And the reason it's going to be a lot more, I don't mean here in Pakistan, but here overseas, the reason it's going to be a lot more is that I did research into what my competitors are charging in Singapore, India, because I didn't look at Pakistan at the time, Singapore, India, Japan, South Korea, and the Emirates. And the prices that I'm charging and the investment that I'm charging, because it's not a cost, it's an investment, you're investing. The existing 50 grand, at the time it was less, it was $35,000, is much lower than anybody's charging. And one of my former mentors in Kuala Lumpur and KL said, Dan, if you charge $35,000 or $50,000 in those markets, people are going to not trust you. They're going to think it's too low. It would be like if you went in to buy a Lamborghini.
Yes.
Like if you go to buy a Toyota or a Kia, and it's a $35,000 car or $25,000 car, and they say this week, $5,000 off. That probably makes sense. You know, they're like, oh, that's a good discount. But if you go to buy a Lamborghini or a Jaguar, and they're like, today, half off, that doesn't make sense. It's a luxury product. Like you expect to pay, there's that. When you are buying a luxury product or a luxury service, you expect to pay higher because it makes you feel good about yourself. That is an investment in yourself. People aren't buying the product. They're buying the feeling they get when they get the product. They're buying they're buying the experience on the other side of it, right? There's an old saying that you don't buy a drill bit, you buy the hole that the drill bit is going to make. So when you buy a business class ticket, you're not just buying yes, it's a more comfortable seat, but you're also buying the experience of, if you're flying from, here to Australia or the United States, that's a long flight. You're also buying, when you arrive there, you're going to feel much fresher. You're going to be able to take a shower in the lounge. You're not going to arrive exhausted. So that's what you're buying. Same thing here. So that would be the next business. It would be an event business. And I think that one of the events would be get it done in person. So it might be here in Karachi, it might be in Delhi, it might be in Tokyo, Osaka, it might be in KL. And you come and I'm going to have it at a hotel, and it might be at the Savoy in London. You're going to come and I'm going to give you homework before you come. By the time you leave the Savoy, or you leave the Mandarin, or you leave whatever the hotel is, and it might be I think hotels are a good place to run it, your Common App essay is going to be finished. Boom, done. And kids don't pay for that. My kids consume my product. Teenagers consume my product. The parents pay for it. But when parents, because parents are the ones who are very concerned about this. Parents are the ones who freak out. This is a very anxiety-provoking business. I very often tell parents, listen, I'm 90% in the helping your kids business, and I'm 10% in the parental anxiety relief business. And parents look at that and they're like, all right, well, Dan's core program is 50,000 American, and this get it done in the weekend is 10,000. But you know what? That's all we need. Like, that's really what we need. We don't need the whole thing. And since that's the key that unlocks a lot of other things, that's a great thing. And if they come to me and they're like, now we're interested, we want to buy the whole thing, I'll be like, that 10,000 gets applied. Like, I will apply that to the whole thing. I don't need you to, but if you're interested, it also gives me an opportunity to look at them. But if it's an event rather than something online, I don't have a problem doing it online. It's probably easier to do it online. But if it's an event where they come together, that's an experience, right? We meet together, we have lunch together, the kids sit in a room and they do it all together. Maybe they help each other. I get a chance to look at them. They get an experience of what it's like to work with me. They help each other. They leave feeling empowered. That's a different thing. And I like events. Events are a little more complicated to manage. And so I would hire an event manager, and I have a couple who are good. And I would probably start with a pilot event. I don't have to charge $10,000 for the first pilot event. It could be, and it doesn't have to be the Common App thing. It could be, I don't. I'll improvise my way through it. It could be something here at Karachi. It could be improve your English. Like, improve your English skills. People here speak English, but it could be you're going to leave speaking much better colloquial English at the end of 3 days. You know, come in and your English is pretty good. By the end of this, you're going to feel much more comfortable having a conversation, just a regular conversation, because I will have practiced it a lot, and I will have built a relationship with them. So I don't know. I'll have to test it out. So that would be my second business.
Perfect. Any setback idea in your career would you like to discuss here?
Setbacks? Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of. You know, I mean, I when I first started this business, I did a lot of things imperfectly. I led by going out with what I thought was the right idea. Again, this is where the importance of getting the message from your market, not from your mind. I led with the idea that it was only going to be about creating applications, and that was going to be it. And then I realized, well, that's a commodity. A lot of people are doing that. And while I have more experience, and I had a lot of experience working with applications. I had a lot of friends ask me, even when I was getting my MBA, Dan, can you help me with my resume and my CV and my interview skills? Because a lot of it is interview skills. Kids need to learn how to interview with companies and with alumni in order to do that. And one of the things that I do with my kids, I should mention this, is just like Rehan is doing, but in a different way. I have all of my kids learn to interview other people. They'll interview teachers, they'll interview experts in their field. I have one kid, actually 2 kids are interested in aerospace. One kid is literally a rocket scientist. He's 15 and he's building rockets. So I said, go on and interview people at NASA, go interview former astronauts, go interview rocket designers. People love to talk about themselves. When they interview other people, because people love to talk about themselves, they do, and when they're asked interesting questions, and when they feel honored, just like I'm doing with my mentees, book number 1 is going to consist of interviews with my mentees and their parents where I'm celebrating their successes. The kid who raised $4,700. Another kid who's teaching rocketry. He's going to be teaching rocketry in Sri Lanka. And I'm sorry, rocketry in Kathmandu this summer. And the other one's going to be teaching financial acumen for 6th graders in Sri Lanka. Another one is going to be teaching financial acumen for kids in Los Angeles. But he speaks Russian, Armenian, Chinese, Japanese, and English. So it's just, and he's going to be doing that. So again, he has interviewed experts in banking and experts in finance, but he has that thing. Once you've interviewed 10 or 12 people, you turn those interviews into text. I mean, you have video and you have audio, but you can turn that into text. There's a book. There's your first book. So some of my kids are going to be producing their very first book with a combination of that and ChatGPT by the time they're 14 years old. Having your first book by the time you're 14, that is a powerful thing, man. It builds credibility. So, you know, and again, they're doing these things not so that they will look good for colleges. They're doing things because they come from their heart. And admissions officers have really good radar. Because so many kids do things, and parents do this too. I have these questions from parents. oh, I want this to look good to MIT. I want this to look good to Penn. I want this to look good to University of Chicago. And I'll tell them, please don't do that so that that looks good to the school. Don't try to please the school. Please yourself, because whatever pleases you and whatever comes from your heart, the school will naturally be able to look at it and go, that's the kind of kid we want. We want a kid who's driven. Don't try and please us. Everybody's trying to please us. So my setback, to come back to your question, was that I started by doing the same thing as everybody else, by focusing only on the applications and only doing the same thing everybody else was doing. And as a result, I was a commodity my first year. You know, my first year I earned $15,000, which is terrible money in the United States. But it was my first year. You know, again, you don't learn a lot. I was also at home in Boston helping to take care of my late father, who fought a 20-year battle with Parkinson's, but you have to start somewhere. The 2 years after that, I made a lot more money and was able to give money away too. So, but in retrospect, if I went back, I'm very careful of using the word should. The old me would have said, I should have done this. Should implies there's a right way to do things. Should implies, you know, like there's a finger coming down from our creator, whether it's, you know, God or Jesus or Allah, whatever it is, like this is the right way to do things. There's no right way to do things. So what I do now is I say, I would prefer to do this. I would have preferred to do this because this gives me the power. I'm responsible for my own fate. Nobody's telling me the right way to do this. There's no right way to do things. The right way to do things is the right way that is right for me. Yes?
Yes.
You know, Buddha or the universe, or I hope it's okay to say Allah, will forgive me if I'm doing something that is in my own heart in the interest of the greater world, if I'm helping other people. So I would prefer to try something different. If I fail, or if it's a learning opportunity, then it's on me. It is not on, oh, I was helpless because the universe didn't help me. The universe will help those who help themselves. That's it. So I would prefer to do it this way. So now I would prefer to ask the market, what would you like to see? Here's my idea. What would you, and now I use some survey instruments. I use some AI-based survey instruments. I use some software that is able to help me categorize that and have the answers so that by the time it comes back, I know exactly what the market has told me they want. Now, I don't always use that exactly, but when the market tells you, we want you to have the event do this, this, and this, and we need this, this, and this. When the market says, make this, they're going to buy it. Like, they're going to buy it. So give them that. Give them what they want. It goes to this old adage in marketing. You've heard this before. Give them what they want, but sell them what they need. Because very often people will come to me and they're like, we want our kid to just get into the greatest college. And that's okay. That's what they want. Okay. What they need is not just to get into a college that's great, but great by what's a great fit for their kids, not great by what's great for society. You know, because after you finish telling your kid, oh, my kid got into Harvard, after that, who cares? Like, that wears off quickly because Harvard may not be the right school for their kid. And also, information shows that where somebody went to school does not track with their success later in life. So it's got to be a great fit for the kid. But if the market tells you, give us this, and you make it for them, two things happen. You are making a product or a service that's based on what the market is telling you. And also, the people you asked feel honored that you ask them. And they go out into the market and they tell everybody about you. They're like, we felt heard. We felt honored. And I will tell you, having marketed in every way, I've online and I built funnels. I've built the most sophisticated funnels and they had a million different things. You know what the best funnel is? Somebody telling somebody else, I worked with Dan. I trust him. Talk to him. Because ultimately it comes back to trust, and people want to work with people they like. And that's the only way I work right now. You know, I want people to refer other people based on the fact that they like me. And I reward them. I reward them with payments. I reward them with not to be crass about it, either that or contributions to charities in their name, or I put money into their college fund. Because listen, I mean, I would much rather do that than spend a ton of money on some sophisticated, you know, with all due respect to Meta, Meta campaign. I don't care about that. It's much better when mothers or dads say, you know, this worked for Dad, this worked for us, and here's why it worked. So it's, look, I'm iterating my way every single day. Look, I'm going to finish this interview and walk away a happier man, based on our interaction. I'm going to learn. I learn every single day. I learn from the kids with whom I work. I will learn from the mothers. I learn from just looking out into the market and seeing what happens. But I'm still a child when it comes to this stuff. I'm still learning every day, and I will learn every single day. I've been honored, and after I get back, I go to Milan, Italy, to speak and on marketing and education. Then I come back, and 3 days later, I turn around and I go back to my alma mater, the Wharton School, and I've been, again, very privileged and honored to be asked to speak about education and marketing and what I'm doing now there at the school. But it's all going to be the same message. It's like, I don't know what's right for you. I know that this has worked for me, but if you are in your 50s or your 60s and you are thinking about what your next career is, here's how it worked for me. Something might work for you. Just do something different. Just do something different. Never be afraid to be different. And we have a saying in English, which is the early bird gets the worm, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Stand out. But the truth is that when it comes to applying to colleges, very often that is not how people play it. They start by saying they want to do that, but they end up playing it safe. They're like, we don't want to ruffle the feathers of admissions officers, because if we do, maybe they'll think we're too bold, or we'll scare them off. So we're just going to go with the fact that we got the best grades. Everybody's got the best grades. Everybody's got the best grades. Stand out. I don't care what it is. All the kids with whom I've worked have stood out in ways that are very unique. One kid, and it doesn't have to, one kid baked cookies. She made the most incredible cookies. And you would think, who cares about cookies? Who cared about cookies? She got into everywhere she applied. She got it everywhere she applied. They all cared because it was such a simple thing. How many kids of the 40,000 kids who applied to Brown and Brandeis, or 55,000 kids, wrote about cookies? Her. Nobody else wrote about cookies. Everybody else wrote about creating an AI bot or writing robots. That's great. But she wrote about cookies, and it was just a beautiful way that she wrote about cookies. It wasn't what she wrote. It was the underneath. When an admissions officer listened to her, this young woman, and they saw in her character, because that's what they're looking for. Like, who is she? What kind of a person is she? That's what it's all about. We all want to understand each other, but it's hard for kids. It's hard for kids. And I try to make it as easy for them as possible.
Your job is very difficult, because the parents wants to go, the parents wants their children to send this university, that university. And you are trying to understand that this is not the good idea. It's a very difficult. That's like, I wanted to buy this car, and you're telling me why you are buying this car. You wanted to go from here to there. So why do you buying this car, right? Right, I want a Honda car for 50,000. You can go by car, or you can go by bike. So it's a very difficult. Sometimes the emotions impact on them, because they wanted to see their child in Harvard University, because they take the picture and let the pupil know that my children and my pupil are my child is studying in the Harvard University. They might feel proud, but how do you manage the things, and how you teach them? This is not the great idea to send the Harvard University to your child. It's a very, very difficult.
Absolutely. And this is true of all families, but I would say it's particularly true of Asian families, South Asian, East Asian, not as much Southeast Asian. And I'm speaking in very general terms. I think there's a lot of fear on the part of parents that, oh my gosh, what will happen if the kid doesn't succeed? And I asked them, what does success look like? And they're like, they have to go to medical school. They have to go to, and that's okay. And very often the first question I ask is, does your child want to go to medical school? And one mom said to me, I don't care if my kid wants to go to medical school, they're going to medical school. And I said to her, with the greatest respect, I am not a good mentor for you. Here's somebody else who's better. Because I want to know, what I want to hear is, I'm not sure, so we'll find out. Because I can work with that. I can't work with something where a parent is saying only this. But I do understand that it's terrifying for parents, because there is no right path. There is no right path. And I don't care if it's the richest parent, if it's a billionaire parent, or it's a parent that comes from a poor family. All parents, and it's usually mothers. I mean, and I don't say this with disrespect to the fathers, but in the United States, and this is true of the South Asian parents there too, and this was true of my Pakistani mentee, because the mother and the father come from Pakistan. But the mother was terrified too. And what she said, and she's connected with a lot of other mothers, and she said, you know what? I talk to a million other mothers. I feel very alone. I feel alone and I feel frightened because I just don't know where to go. And I always tell them the same thing. I said, you know what? I hear you and I have you. No matter what, I've got you. And you are not alone. Like you may feel that you're alone. You are not alone. I've talked to thousands of mothers. And while you feel alone, I'm not going to tell you not to feel alone. I have you and I hear you and I'll be with you every step of the way. So.
That's so perfect. Any piece of advice you received in the last 5 years that changed your life, and then do you remember? That's the piece of advice that I wanted to know.
Yeah. No, I'll give you a very good piece of advice that I heard, and it was from Dennis Yu. It was from Dennis, who's a dear friend and mentor and a good friend of Rayhan's. Magic's been a hobby for a long time. I fell for it early. It wasn't that I wanted to be a big shot in front of other people. I was just fascinated. It's the oldest performing art form. And you could look at the walls of the pyramids and you can see people doing the cups and balls. It's just my wife is a horror movie actress. She does horror movies. But these emotions are very primal. We like to be fooled. The smartest people like to be fooled. The smartest people like to be scared. And you know why? Because we don't see it that much anymore. You asked me this question earlier. Life is with the predictability of life and the unpredictability of life. Yes. But when we are fooled, it brings back that childlike sense of wonder where everything fooled us, right? Everything was cool. So we like to be fooled. And it's not that I'm doing the fooling. It's that when I give it to the audience or when I give it to the kids and I'm like, here, I'm not doing the magic. You're doing the magic. Like you cut the cards. You asked the question. I didn't touch anything. You did everything. And when they create the trick, when they predict the outcome, or when they turn to an audience member and they do it, everything that's happened is in their hands. No, I've done some stuff, but it's secret. But they're the ones who are doing it. And they finish, and their audience is amazed, but they're even more amazed. They're like, how did I do that? And, to me, that's great because it's ultimately about storytelling and it's about connections. But I didn't want to bring magic into the mix because there was a sense of, I don't know, almost shame. I don't know why I had that. There was a part of me that felt, magic, people are going to think it's silly and it's weird and it's, Dan is an Ivy League guy and why is he bringing magic in? And Dennis said this. He said, it's exactly the opposite. You tell people to be different all the time. That's super different. There's nobody else in your space teaching magic and you play piano, but you can't read music. And you're teaching the connection between piano and math, because music is math that we hear. So I'm not teaching kids how to play piano, but I work with a lot of musicians. So I'm teaching the combination of, like, you can take a kid who's never played piano before, and in 2 weeks I can have them playing any song at all. And it's not that I'm a piano teacher. I'm just teaching them its basic simplicity between creating, like learning 5 or 6 chords and just listening to something and being able to play it. Because music is connected to math and math is connected to storytelling. All these things are connected. These buckets aren't different. But specifically with the magic, I said, I really don't want to bring it in. And Dennis said, you're so close to the problem. You tell kids to lean into the things they're most frightened and most ashamed about. You do that. I want you to try that. I want you to try that for a few weeks. And I did. And the response was huge. Parents were like, that is so cool. That's so cool. That's so different. We've never seen that before. What does that look like with our kids? And I said, it looks like storytelling. And, it's in process right now. On Monday, I'm going to be doing a magic workshop at Rayhan School. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. It could be a disaster. It won't be a disaster. It'll be fun. It could be really fun. I've brought along a lot of toys. I'm going to leave a lot of things behind. But, I've been doing magic a long, long time. And some of my dearest friends are luminaries in magic. And they're very supportive of this. They're like, look, they've been writing me this week because I've been on Facebook sharing pictures of this. And they're like, this is so cool that you're doing this. Because I'm not a performing magician. I'm not on stage in Vegas like I used to be or in those things. I'm bringing magic into the world in a very different way. But what is change? What are these kids doing when they're going from, I've never touched a computer before. I've never worked with chat, to 1 week later writing a book. That's magic, man. That's a transformation like we've never seen before. That is magic. And when you see a kid go home and their parents are like, who are you? you're still my child, but all of a sudden here you are creating stories and stuff, and you've never touched GPT before. That's magic. That's a transformation. That is creating something out of nothing. So that was a challenge, and Dennis gently forcing me to bring that into orbit for what I did was a profoundly loving thing to do. And I'm glad that I did that. And it's an integral part of my family, of my family, Freudian slip, of my program right now.
That's a perfect thing. I just want to know that you are working with the entrepreneur, like what normally advice do you give the entrepreneur that these habits you should have? Like habit make the future. So I just want to know, can you give me 2 or 3 habits that I want to be an entrepreneur, so you should have these habits, right?
Sure.
2 habits, 3 habits, like.
Sure. I mean, the most important one now, I mean, and again, I've been talking with Rayon and with Dennis and with Perry Marshall and my mentors and Marisa Murgatroyd, who I'm going to be working with in Milan and Como the week after next, and some other people around the world, Mark Lack, is really embrace the power of AI. Don't rely on that as the only tool. That's one. All right. The other thing too is look at the things that you've done before that you really love, and they don't have to be academic things. They could be, if you loved, like I have a lot of twins I work with. It's an odd thing, and these twins are really interested in hiking, but they're all also interested in plant-based cures for medical problems, particularly problems related to allergies. And I said, you know what? There's your secret sauce. You're great students, you're great at science, you're great at writing, but nobody else is going to be using that pattern, that attack pattern for companies. That's your secret sauce. So my thing to them is lean into that, try that, and let's make that part of your story. So they're already diving into that with abandon. That's great. So it's, that's my advice. Just again, always be curious. Always lean into
be curious. Always be curious about something, anything.
Always be curious. Always ask why. Why, what if, and imagine. Go back to your childhood. Look, kids are little adults. When I was working in my clinical rotations as a therapist and as a budding psychologist, although I never became a full psychologist, my kids are really wise. I saw other people talking to kids, and they would speak to kids like little kids, like, "Oh, hello." You know what? Kids hate that. When they're little, 2 and 3, they like it. But when they're 7 or 8 or 9, they're really smart. They don't have car keys. Well, I hope they don't have car keys because they'd be terrible drivers. They don't have car keys. They don't have money. They don't have credit cards, but they are very smart. You know this. You've talked to kids before. Kids can see through things really quickly. They know what's real and not real. So I talk to kids like they're adults. I hold them accountable. I hold them, kids test boundaries. That's what children do. Children test boundaries. They're like, what can I get away with? Can I get away with lying to you? Can I get away with stealing from you? Can I get away with not stealing? Can I get away with doing? And I'm like, I see what you're doing. I'm not going to yell at you or shame you, but I see what you're doing. And they'll look at you like that. And look, I'm going to hold you accountable. You're a little adult. In the same way, adults are still children, or I hope they will be. Never lose that sense of childlike curiosity. You look at people. I'm going to use Musk or the late Steve Jobs or even, Warren Buffett. Okay, Buffett's in his 70s or maybe his 80s right now. Probably one of the most successful business guys ever. He still lives in the house he bought for $50,000 before. He still drives an old car. The guy's richer than God. And what does he do? So he lives humility, but he still has that, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? Let's just run these micro experiments. He's never afraid to try. And what is childhood other than, in the West, we play cowboys and Indians. I don't know what they play over here. You're imagining, it's play therapy, right? So when you're an adult, just keep playing with ideas. Imagine what if we tried, you're building a business. What if we tried this? What if we tried this ad campaign? What if we tried this? And put a little money behind that, put a little experiment. You've got this great team here. Here they are back here. Hi, guys.
Yes.
Ask them, give them responsibility. Say, run with this for a day and see if it happens. If it fails, who cares? But better to try. It's that old thing, better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all. Better to have tried than failed than not to have tried at all because you don't know. And I bring this quote up in every interview I have, but one of my great heroes in sports is Wayne Gretzky. And Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Take that shot. If it doesn't go into the goal, who cares? But you won't know unless you take the shot. Take the shot, dude. You know? What's the worst that happens? You have the pride of having taken the shot. But if you don't take the shot and 20 years later, you're like, I wish I'd taken that shot. Then you know. If I hadn't come to Pakistan this time, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met you guys back here. Who knows what's going to come of this? So
that's a great idea. You are discussing about your childhood, right? The children. Can you share the idea if you look back, like in your youngest life? How did you start your career? Can you share a little bit about the story of them?
Yeah, I mean, my parents hired a magician for my 5th birthday party, and I was hooked. Like, he was doing it. I can't remember what he was doing, and I was just sitting there. My jaw was dropped, and I was like, whatever he's doing, I want to do that. And a couple of years later, I was teaching it, and it was, I'm a good sized guy now. I'm not a huge guy right now, but I was a very small, skinny kid, and I got bullied a lot, in school. Not beaten up, but just bullied and teased and stuff. And I like a lot of kids who that happened to, I retreated into a world of fantasy. And I read a lot, and I wrote a lot, and I did a lot of magic, and I played piano on my own. I just kind of hung out on my own. And I think living in that world, of that inner world of my head, I was able to just go a lot of, well, what if we try this? And I remember my parents going, go out and make friends. And it wasn't that I didn't want to make friends. I had a few very close friends. So I think that early life for me of exploring my inner world helped me cultivate an appreciation for the outside world. But I'm always curious. I mean, sitting with Rayhan the other day, I'm like, what if we try this? What if we tried that? And Rayhan's infinitely patient with me. But, ideas cost nothing, right? Ideas cost nothing to try. And I'll end by saying this, there's this old adage in show business that we are all creatures of memory. I believe that we are, and this is not an original observation, I think that we are memory-making creatures. We are here, among other things, to create wonderful memories and experiences for ourselves and for others. Yes? All the money, all the success, all the businesses, all the cars, all the houses, or whatever the food that we put on the table, those are byproducts of that. If we can create wonderful memories, like this interview today, I will never forget that. I will never forget today because we've made this connection.
Yes.
And there was a movie that came out 20 years ago by the great Christopher Nolan who directed it, and Leonardo DiCaprio, the actor, said this in his character. He said, the most impossible thing to remove is an idea. Once an idea is planted in the brain, you can never remove it. And where this comes to roost is there's this thing in show business that says essentially, nobody will ever remember the song you sang or the card trick you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And you have made me feel honored and welcome today. And I hope that I know that I will be able to carry that forward in the rest of my day. And I hope that maybe the opposite is true. And if it's not, that's okay. And a mentor years ago said, Dan, what other people think or say about us is none of our business. I used to be a people pleaser. If somebody didn't like me, I'm like, why don't they like me? I want them to like. Now, if somebody likes me, great. If they don't, it's not my responsibility. My only responsibility is to be a good person, to try and do something good for somebody else every day, my mentees or their parents or somebody else, even if it's something as simple as when I go to the supermarket, pushing the cart back to the place. So the person whose job is to do that doesn't have to do that. It's an easy thing to do. And to try and make a positive dent on this planet. And at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. I want to leave this planet a slightly better place than it was when I came. I hope I'm going to be able to do that. I'm trying. It's a work in progress, like everything else.
Dan, any idea that you want to give? I just want to ask you the one question that you haven't experienced the USA, Pakistan. What do you think? What industry gonna boom in the future? The people think that the AI gonna change the things. That I wanna know that what do you think? What's your idea in the future that this industry gonna stop and this industry going to be start? That you have that experience, that you have visited so many.
Yeah. No, look, AI and the emerging technologies, VR, everything that is related to artificial intelligence is going to change the face of absolutely everything. And so I'm going to alter my response to your question a little bit. I think the most
studies.
Here's my answer. It's not an industry, it's a skill set. The most important skill set to cultivate is communication, the ability to communicate well, and that includes all the things I mentioned before, and understanding psychology and sociology. Rayhan and I have spoken extensively on this one. And adaptability. Be adaptable. Be able to adapt. This is why I bring applied improvisation into this, to be able to adapt and to listen to other people. And when they say, I want to do this, go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. The always being curious.
Okay.
With that, you can adapt to any industry at all. Okay. And in terms of Pakistan, based on what I see, and again, I'm a complete newbie with Pakistan, I think that while I see and while I hear Rayhan and other people express a lot of frustration where Pakistan is, I understand that. I also see, and Rayhan had a lovely comment the other day that, Dan, you are able to see Pakistan through my eyes. And it was a very touching comment to hear, especially as somebody who's brand new here. But I look at this country, you know, even with, you know, the garbage dumps on the street, I mean, all the things that many other people would look at and go, oh, that's so terrible, and why do they have that? And it's a third world country, but there's, you know, but they could clean it up. But there's such promise, you know. People are. Yes, there seems to be an imperative toward get married, have babies, keep perpetuating the same cycle. That's not necessarily bad, you know. I mean, at the same time, and I'm not going to talk about the government or any of the other things too. There is incredible pride in your country. You are proud of who you are. You're proud of your country. You're proud of your religion. You're proud of your people. You're proud of your tribes. It's a tribal country too, yes? So, unlike my country, which is starting to splinter, and I'm not going to criticize the United States because there are a lot of things that are great about the United States, but one of the things that troubles me about what's happening in the United States is the divisiveness that happens. And even with that, there are people on the opposite side of this political spectrum of who I am. I still love them. I've known them for years. We just agree to disagree on certain political issues. I love them no matter what. This came up before where we talked about, you know, in a previous interview where I talked about the sign of mental health and resilience. The real sign of resilience is the ability to contain opposing emotions within a bubble of safety. You know, I'll ask the same question that I asked to the previous interviewer, which is, do you ever have one of those days where you have a dear friend and you love them, but they do something that makes you angry and you're like, I hate you, right? Do you ever have that?
Sometimes they happen.
Sometimes, right? Like they make you angry for that.
But I forget that.
But you still care about them, right?
Yes, exactly.
Or even with yourself. You ever have a day where you get angry at yourself?
Yes, sometimes.
Okay, right. But you still care about yourself.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
The sign of mental health or the sign of resilience is the ability to, no matter what happens, go, you know what? I still hold myself. I still hold my friend. I still, like I talked about before, in unconditional positive regard. I'm able to take this as something that just happened. It's just something that happened. It doesn't mean feelings are not facts. So I'm going to process this. I'm going to put that in its box and we'll look at that another day. And I think cultivating resilience is very often a byproduct of how people are able to bond with one another. And one thing I see in Pakistan, and maybe I'm seeing it the wrong way, is this incredible allegiance between people. You know, people may be poor or rich, or they may be from different tribes, but one way or the other, you know, when I say Pakistan, what do you say?
Zindabad.
Zindabad. And everywhere I've said it, you guys are together. You guys are a family. Okay, and I don't see that in a lot of other countries. So that's real power. So I see such promise in this country. It's going to be a completely different country with some changes, and you know, inshallah, I can be a tiny part of that as an outsider. Very often, it helps to have an outsider doing this. If I'm welcomed to do that, great. If not, it's my pleasure to come through. I'm learning every day. So that's one thing that I see as an industry that's going to change. But the beauty of it is this: always be curious. I don't know what industry. Nobody knows what industries are going to change. All we know is there's going to be a lot of change, and it's going to happen faster and faster. And so the ability to embrace the pace and the speed and the frightening, what's the right way of putting this? The terrifying beauty of the pace of that change, rather than saying it's going to change so fast, I just don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing. Leaning into that change and going, no matter what, I am powerful, and I'm going to just lean into that. I see real resilience in the people of Pakistan, and it's quite inspiring to see.
Now you have almost 60-year experience, right? In the different country you have been there. I just want to know, now these days things are changing very fast, or now what I am seeing here, now things are getting changed very fast. Like the mobile is coming very fast and things is changing. So what do you think before the 40, you're at the age of 40, the things changing very slowly, or now these days things are changing very fast? Is it correct?
Yes. Things are changing very fast.
Very fast. Can you explain if you go back in your youngest, like, what do you think, how many times things getting changed? Like 5 year, like if we want to change the car, took 5 years or 10 years. Now every day coming new cars, every day coming new mobiles. Isn't happening? I just want to get your feedback. So get ready myself that the things are changing. Now your experience, that you have a 63 years experience. So I want to learn, and we want to learn that things are getting very fast. So can you summarize the thing that the last 10 years things changing, this, now things are changing very fast.
So let me see if I understand the question. What I hear you asking is that the pace of change is
exactly
the pace of change, and it's increasing at a geometrical rate. Like,
yes.
So when I was growing up, or even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when the internet came along, things were changing.
Yes.
There was the development of web pages, which look very primitive right now, and then there were funnels and there were things, but they happen slowly. But every day there's the GPT-4 release is just light years ahead of where 3 is, and we know that that's going to keep it. So there's this idea that at some point we are going to become numb and unable to handle the pace of change. But the more we embrace that change and the more we practice that, I'm not going to speak for Rayhan, but this is one of the things that I see. If you give kids PCs, or you empower them to do that at an early age, when this becomes normal for them, and they're able to say, oh, here's the new release, I'm just going to try this, then it becomes natural for them. Where fear creeps in is for people who find that their skill sets are suddenly obsolete. They were invaluable to their company one day, and the next day they're like, I'm no longer invaluable. I am now replaceable. And the way that I think that you become irreplaceable is not by digging in and becoming defensive. I think it's by learning more skills, leaning into your confidence. And confidence comes in a lot of different ways, right? But confidence doesn't come from without. Confidence doesn't come, in my opinion, and this is a mistake I made early on, was seeking confidence from outside. Having other people say, oh, Dan, that was great. We believe, and that would make me feel better. Right now, it's not that I don't care what other people think of me, but again, what other people think about us doesn't matter. It has to come from inside. So sourcing confidence from inside, as though there's a well inside me, and every time I go back and I seek that well. Buddha said creativity is like a river. It's always flowing. You can just go back and source it. Just take another bucket and source it. And I'd like to think of creativity in that way too. Like, creativity is always within us. And creativity doesn't have to mean writing a song or doing a painting. Creativity can show up in business, or in the way that we think of something in a different way. Think about Apple's first campaign. Think different. Like, Jobs was so ahead of his time for these things, So just think different. Be resilient. Be a child. Years ago I saw a T-shirt that impacted me, and it had a saying on it. It said, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood." Now, some of us grew up with very happy childhoods. I had a mixed childhood. There were days that were really happy and days that were just really hard. But, I never grew into my adult life thinking, oh, that person was so mean to me. And, I know people who are in their 70s and 80s and they're still angry at their parents who've been dead for 50 years for saying something mean to them 50 years ago. Grow up, grow out of it. That's something that happened. Just because something happened to you doesn't mean that defines you. You are not defined by other people's thoughts. You're only defined by how you react to that and how you respond to that. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is an animal thing. You say, somebody says something mean to you and then you get angry right away. Responding is taking a little time to go, okay, I don't particularly like what I heard, but that person is coming from a place of hurt or something. And ultimately, what they say about me doesn't matter. Like, it may not feel good, but that's in I know you don't drink alcohol in this country, but in Swiss German, there's a saying, that's their beer. That's not my beer. That's their beer. That's their drink. It's not my drink. I'm not drinking from that vessel. This is my water or my beer. Don't let other people's actions or comments about what you're doing or who you are define you. Define yourself. And that can be a hard thing to do. And we learn to define ourselves, I think, based on the actions that we make and how we impact other people. And this goes to some basic principles of golden rule. I mean, I think that if I inadvertently offend somebody else, I try not to say mean things to other people. Once in a while, we're all animals and I'll say something, but I generally try not to. But if I do offend somebody else, I apologize for it right away. I'm like, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings and I didn't mean to. What can I do to make that up for you? And sometimes I can't do that, but at least I've taken care of my side of the street. But at least they feel acknowledged and heard. So it's just trying to become a better person. But very often, they can make me a better man. Like just this interaction we've had today. The interaction I had with Captain over here. He made me a better man today. Every interaction I have with other people makes me a better man incrementally. And I like to think that I hope that some of the things that I do make my mentees and make the other people and make the people in Pakistan with whom I've had the great fortune to come in contact with, make them slightly better men and women, and the opposite as well. Even the people that I've met just in passing. The guy on the motorbike yesterday who I just passed as we were walking into the restaurant, and I just smiled at him and he smiled at me. Even that tiny interaction, I'm going to carry through my day because I didn't know him. He doesn't know me, but I doubt he's met a foreigner before. And, there's this thing called the butterfly effect, right? Where a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the planet and it affects the air currents on the other side of the planet. These are all butterfly effects. All these buckets are contained. Particle physics and chemistry and art and music, these are all part of the same thing. These are all part of the great human experience. If you zoom way out, Earth is this tiny little blue dot in the middle of the cosmos. So when you look at it, we are very sort of insignificant in what we do. And yet there is great significance in what we do. So keep it in perspective, like at the end of the day, we can't take ourselves that seriously. Our actions impact other people a lot. But we have to hit the pillow every night when we go to bed and say, I've done my best. I'm going to try and do a little bit better tomorrow. This is just my philosophy. I'm just one guy.
Dan, any question? Do you think anything you would like to share with us in your mind? Because I'm going to close this podcast. I want to know if you would like to share anything with us.
Here's the thing I'm going to share. Thank you for your interview today. Thank you, people of Pakistan, for being awesome. Because you are. Thank you for being so welcoming to me, a stranger, an American, somebody who's brand new to your country, but somebody who has taken a real shine to your country, to your smiles, to your hospitality, to your food, to all the things that make you so special. The beautiful buildings, the dirty streets, the wonderful food, the everything that you are. And I see such incredible promise in this country, but that's got to come from you, not from me. I'm only an outside observer, but I do bring the gift of an outside observer. And sometimes we are so close to a problem. You're you're facing the wall and you're like, this is the problem that I have, but you need to zoom out to have that perspective. I guess I do bring that to the table because I'm literally on the other side of the planet. Like I'm as far away in Los Angeles as I can possibly be. LA is 12 hours away, so we're as far away as we can possibly be, not hour-wise, but in terms of distance. And so I guess the last comment I'll make is thank you again, and inshallah, we will meet again. Our paths will cross again. I look forward to it.
I heard the word inshallah. How did you get that? Inshallah.
I've heard it from many people, and my understanding is that if God wills it to be so. Is that correct?
Inshallah, we will call you again. Thank you so much, Dan. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Bye.